Over the next hour, we will bring you tonight's headlines, tomorrow's front pages, and the views of our paper reviewers, the editor of The Courier, David Clegg, and the deputy political editor of The Mail on Sunday, Anna Mikhailova. Welcome to both of you. First, though, all week, President Trump has kept his cards close to his chest, saying yesterday, no one knows what I'm going to do. It is a public holiday in the US, and we haven't heard from the president himself today, but his thought process became a little clearer, and we got a hint of one possible strategy, courtesy of the White House press secretary.
Regarding the ongoing situation in Iran, I know there has been a lot of speculation amongst all of you in the media regarding the president's decision-making and whether or not the United States will be directly involved. In light of that news, I have a message directly from the president, and I quote, "Based on the fact that there's a substantial chance of negotiations that may or may not take place with Iran in the near future, I will make my decision whether or not to go within the next 2 weeks." That's a quote directly from the president for all of you today.
Well, Sky's US correspondent Mark Stone is in Washington with the latest analysis.
I think he needs 2 more weeks to do some more thinking. I think on the face of it, at face value, he wants to give diplomacy a chance. And we know that Steve Witkoff, his Middle East envoy, is talking to the Iranian foreign minister. That's encouraging. We know, too, that David Lammy, the British foreign secretary, has been here in Washington today talking to his counterpart, the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, aligning their views on what to do. And I think from a British perspective, getting as clear a sense as they can about Donald Trump's thinking face to face with his Secretary of State. But I guess in a sense, what Donald Trump's simply done is just, bought himself 2 more weeks to do a few things. Yes, to give diplomacy a chance, but also to prepare in perhaps a more satisfactory way for a potential attack on Iran. You know, militarily prepare for that, make sure the right equipment is in the right place, make sure that the risks associated with such an attack are mitigated, the troops in the region, and also the political risks for him too. His base here in America, the sort of MAGA crowd, the America First coalition that he has brought together over the course of just a few months, they are deeply, deeply split on the prospect of him getting involved in Iran. So I think he needs to massage the narrative there. He needs to either prepare them for something or give himself a bit more time to listen to their voices. And one of the MAGA faithful, Steve Bannon, very influential, former strategist in the White House, he had lunch with Donald Trump today. He is vehemently against any American involvement in Iran.
Well, while he considers his options, the tit-for-tat missile strikes between Iran and Israel go on. In the last hour, the Israeli military has issued an evacuation warning to residents in an industrial area in the north of the country. The IDF has focused attacks on multiple military and nuclear sites. It says it attacked the Arak nuclear reactor, which is still under construction. Satellite images showed a large blackened hole in the roof of the reactor. Iranian targets have included Israel's educational and energy facilities and government buildings. The Soroka Hospital in the southern city of Beersheba was hit today, leaving 2 people seriously injured and around 40 others wounded. Sky's Cordelia Lynch sent this report from the city.
A strike on the largest hospital in southern Israel. An attack in the heart of a city. Inside, chaos and panic. Look what's happened to my hospital, the man cries. Outside, bewildered patients. This woman, still in shock. She's 7 months pregnant. Her legs trembling. Iran says it hit a military site nearby, and Soroka Medical Center was not a direct target. There were only minor injuries, but the impact on this war could be great.
Suddenly, we heard an enormous explosion. We knew it was close. All sorts of things fell from the roof. The doctor was injured and others in the room were hit by debris too. The building opposite was on fire. It was very dangerous. Very worrying and very scary.
The
siren stopped and then we heard a huge explosion. We were thrown backwards from the blast.
Well, you can see that the roof has collapsed on one of the buildings and there are lots of windows blown out. The Israelis are framing this as a war crime of the most serious kind that demands a heavy response. The question is whether this strike represents a turning point in the conflict.
3 days ago, Farabi Hospital in Kermanshah in Iran was also damaged. But Israel claimed it wasn't a target. Now, it seems focused on retribution. Its leader promising victory.
They're targeting civilians because they're a criminal regime. They're the arch-terrorists of the world. They want to have nuclear terrorism, which will put the entire world under nuclear blackmail, and they would use these weapons. That's what the Ayatollah Khamenei says that he would do. He would use these weapons to wipe Israel off the map. Well, he's not going to. We're not going to let him. And we're in the process of achieving a tremendous victory.
The drumbeat of war is sounding louder. Far-right politician Itamar Ben-Gvir among the emboldened, calling for the Iranian regime to be annihilated and praising Donald Trump.
What do you want Donald Trump to do? What do you want him to do?
In Iran, the civilian death toll is far higher. Human rights groups estimate 600 people have died. But the human cost here is a harder story to tell. Images of this funeral among the few to emerge as the country faces an internet blackout. This is the latest attack on Iran's nuclear facilities, a heavy water reactor, one Israel claimed could be used for plutonium production in the future. The last 24 hours have felt like a warning shot. Dynamics fragile, the sands shifting, and everything looking a lot more precarious. Cordelia Lynch, Sky News, Beersheba in southern Israel.
Well, plenty of coverage again in tomorrow's newspapers, not least because of those Trump comments from a little earlier. The FT says while President Trump is still speaking of negotiations to end the conflict, he's also set a 2-week countdown now on whether the US will join in on the attacks on Iran. The Telegraph writes that the US president tells Iran's supreme leader he has one last chance for a deal. And this is The Guardian as well. Trump will decide on Iran attack within 2 weeks, while The Times sees it as Mr. Trump stepping back from the brink, at least for now. While inside The Times, the paper looks at what the US might attack Iran with. And the Metro reports that Sir Keir Starmer has urged Donald Trump to resist taking part in strikes against Iran. Well, let's get the thoughts then of David Clegg and Anna Mikhailova. Welcome to both of you. Great to see you. Once again, we've been waiting for what Donald Trump will do. First of all, he suggested it'll be in 48 hours. And then he said it's going to be in a week or less. Now it looks like he's bought more time. The Times newspaper suggests he's, come back from the brink. We all wonder what he's waiting for. Is it for diplomacy to kick in? And might that start tomorrow with this meeting between the UK, France, Germany and Iranian foreign ministers?
Well, we know that Donald Trump has, since the start of this presidency, put a lot of stock into this negotiation effort with Iran. And he does appear to have been slightly blindsided by the actual outbreak of war. Although, interestingly, it also looks like the success of those actions so far militarily by Israel made him suddenly slightly change his position and think, well, could I, by using this capability, these bunker buster bombs, actually help really set back any chance of Iran developing the nuclear weapon, which he has consistently said he is against. So I think he's bought himself some time. He has also bought some time for some negotiations to take place. I mean, there's very little proper analysis about Iran just because it's so closed. But some people who do understand it a bit better say the decision-making process is quite scattered. So it's not like there's one person who can make a call. Therefore, you do need to give them a bit of time for negotiations to take place. So maybe that's also part of it, that they need to just buy a little bit of time. But equally, you can look at Caroline Leavitt's statement today, and it also does lay the ground for a US involvement still, because she still makes that argument about why it would need to take place potentially.
Well, there's been a rout of Iranian leaders as well. If you think even from the first night, was it, 20 dead from the IRGC onwards, including their nuclear scientists and so on. Yes, why does Israel need America? The inside pages of the Times explain it. We've talked about it already. It's these massive bunker buster bombs, MOP, I think they're called, aren't they, actually? B-2 stealth bombers drop it. I mean, they do how would it operate? It's literally like shortly after 10 p.m. in the middle of the Indian Ocean, 4 B-2 Spirits stealth bombers take off under the cover of darkness, heading to Iran. I mean, it's dramatic writing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very dramatic. It's also an interesting piece. One of the lines that struck me were that the bomb's exact capabilities are classified. The initial impact is estimated to deliver as much as 900 megajoules of kinetic energy, roughly equivalent to a fully laden Boeing 747 slamming into a barrier at 170 miles per hour, which, for information that's classified, is very specific. I think but I think the interesting point from this analysis is that there is still some doubt about, given how difficult this fortified base is going to be to wipe out properly, to destroy it, to be sure that you have set back the nuclear capabilities. It feels like what's probably happening right now and what will be happening during these 2 weeks is a twin-track process of trying to make the diplomacy work, starting in Geneva tomorrow, the Americans thinking about where they're going next, but also working out what the military strategy looks like, what will the military campaign look like, how will they ensure that if they do try to destroy this Fordo nuclear facility with American help, that they get it right and that it is successful.
Yes, and certainly somebody close to the Iranian regime said today that if the Americans join in, all gloves would be off. And that would mean American assets in the region would become a target. Everyone's wondering about the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, through which about a quarter of the world's oil goes, which would have massive implications in terms of economy, inflation, oil prices, and so on. The suggestion is that since the middle of June, the US had about 40,000 troops in the Middle East. Wide-ranging countries, Bahrain, Egypt, Iraq, Israel, Jordan, Kuwait, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Syria, and the United Arab Emirates. The US military also uses large bases in Djibouti and Turkey. Now, if the gloves are off and everywhere where Americans have targets, there's a wide range of targets suddenly for the Iranians to hit. And the suggestion was their missiles are still deep underground, that Israel has not taken them all out.
And any of those countries that you've listed where America is based would be a legitimate target in the Iranian eyes. Yeah. And that brings us back to the domestic pressure on Trump, which we discussed earlier, which is, given his rhetoric in the election, his repudiation of military campaigns abroad in a previous American presidents, he does not want to have troops killed on his watch. So I think that will be factoring heavily with him as well. So there is a lot of complicated factors to consider there, and it is quite clear that Trump, a man who we consider to be impulsive and gung-ho, has looked over the edge in the last 48 hours, it feels like, and decided to step back.
Well, we know the British Foreign Secretary, David Lammy, travelled to Washington, met Marco Rubio, the US Secretary of State, and the top line of that readout was they both agreed that Iran should not get nuclear weapons. So that's the other factor that plays into this, obviously. We know Sir Keir Starmer has urged Donald Trump to step back from military action. He said there had been several rounds of discussions with the US, and that, to me, is the way to resolve the issue. There is a real risk of escalation in the conflict, as he urged all sides to seek a diplomatic outcome. Russia is also doing the same as well. President Putin condemning Israel for its attack on Iran. The Russian president spokesperson Dmitry Peskov told Sky News tonight that talking about regime change in Iran is unacceptable and killing the supreme leader would open Pandora's box. He's been speaking to our Moscow correspondent, Ivor Bennett.
It should be unacceptable. Even talking about that should be unacceptable for everyone.
But it is being talked about.
Unfortunately.
Donald Trump has been openly speculating about it. What do you make of that language? Is it irresponsible, inflammatory?
Well, he never said about a definite decision on that.
But he's speculating about killing Iran's supreme leader.
We would rather not do that by ourselves.
If it were to happen, though, that Israel assassinated Ayatollah Ali Khamenei with US assistance, how would Russia react?
Very negatively. very negatively. We will strongly disapprove it.
Would it prompt any action?
Well, actually, it will lead to an action coming from inside Iran. Iran's society is very well organized and very well consolidated, and it will lead to birth of extremist moods inside Iran. And those who are speaking about that, they should keep it in mind. They will open the Pandora box.
And that suggestion of, taking out the Ayatollah came after this incident, as you can see in the pages of the Times, the Soroka Medical Centre, whose upper floors, the paper points out, were left devastated. The Israeli government describing it as a war crime. It's also in the Metro as well, underneath the Prime Minister urging Trump to resist taking part in strikes against Iran. Oh, in fact, we've chopped off the bottom of it. Dozens injured is the below part of this in a missile strike on a hospital. It's not lost on people, of course, that in Gaza, hospitals have been destroyed since the start of the Israeli response after October the 7th. We've been concentrating, obviously, on one smouldering conflict in the Middle East this week. But while the world's focus is shifted, the war in Gaza continues. Tonight, our correspondent Alex Crawford had a special report showing the ongoing horrors of war through the eyes of 2 British doctors working there.
Gaza is a sliver of land where hospitals have become frontline targets.
Absolutely massive strike on EGH Hospital.
And operating theatres are on the battlefield.
Everyone is a target, everyone is fair game. Doctors, children.
In this film, 2 British surgeons recorded their first-hand experiences over a 3-week period.
The emaciated bodies lying on the operating table.
Dr. Tom Potokar, a burns and reconstructive specialist.
This was so barbaric.
And Dr. Victoria Rose, a plastic surgeon, are both driven by one motive.
This is the little 10-year-old boy whose ankle got blown off.
Saving lives. What they witnessed demands to be shown.
And she's had a liver injury, so shrapnel here.
It's the total inhumanity and the cruelty.
It's absolute carnage here. This guy's been brought in for malnutrition.
The sound of rockets and shelling. This is the daily life in Gaza.
Alex Crawford with that special report. So Inside the Eye reporting at least 51 people have been killed in strikes on aid and refugee camps in Gaza. And this is the problem, Anna, once again, the Gaza conflict claiming so many lives still, and many of them, this idea that they're approaching food stations or queuing for food.
Yes, but of course, if you look at, obviously, Israel's point of view here, the Gaza war started because of Hamas's actions. Hamas is funded by Iran. So it is interlinked, and it's interlinked in a very... the national security of the region is hugely affected by what happens with Iran right now and Iran itself. So it's correct to focus on that because that is the politics and the geopolitics of the day. Of course, the humanitarian impact of what's an ongoing war and the human cost of it is terrible. But equally, I don't think it's right to make a point that we shouldn't be talking about Iran and it shouldn't be in the front pages. There's a very specific reason why it is.
There's a sense that all the conflicts that we've discussed recently, Gaza, Lebanon, Syria, Yemen, they're all Iran-sponsored proxies, or there's an element of Iran.
Well, you could include Ukraine, because obviously the Russians use Iranian drones to target Ukraine and have done since near the start of the war.
Yes. So, depending on how pessimistic you want to be, you could say that this is bringing us on to the final conflict of what's been going on in various places in recent years. What that doesn't take away from is the horror in Gaza again, and it is Gaza in particular, where that very small, troubled piece of land that has seen so much trauma. I think it is extremely important to consider the global political aspect of what's been going on, to consider what's going to happen in the weeks ahead and what the calculations that are being taken in Washington, London, Tehran, and elsewhere. But ultimately, when you see the pictures of the hospitals being destroyed, you remember that it's people that are largely just trying to go on with their lives that are the victims.
Just seeing a little bit more detail about the Foreign Secretary who will travel to Geneva tomorrow for talks between the E3 foreign ministers, so UK, France and Germany, the EU High Representative Kaja Kallas and the Iranian Foreign Minister will also be there. He will reiterate the UK's long-standing concerns about Iran's nuclear programme and press for a diplomatic solution. And the meeting is part of the latest round of UK diplomatic action following the Foreign Secretary's visit to Washington to meet the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio. The Foreign Secretary will be clear on the need for a diplomatic solution to resolve the nuclear issue for the long term, which is essential for international peace, security and preventing nuclear proliferation around the world. Clearly had to get on the same page as the Americans before that meeting, hence, presumably, the trip to Washington. So, as I said, full coverage of that tomorrow and the situation overnight. We know there have been evacuation orders for parts of northern Iran this evening too. Well, still to come on our press preview. Allow us the choice to have a good death. We will take a look at the Daily Express's view on the assisted dying bill.
We're rolling.
Welcome to the world.
Our new podcast, starting now. It's very exciting. Every week, we'll be reporting from the world's trouble spots.
We get to hold those in positions of power accountable, and we get to ask the questions that the audience, the listeners, want to know about.
And that's why it is so important that people tune in, come along for the road, come along for the journey. It'll be fun.
Our app gives you the very best of Sky News wherever you are. Breaking news, videos and analysis.
Evidence of the crisis.
Podcasts, watching us live.
Live here from Washington.
Wherever you get your podcast.
All in one place. And all at just the touch of a screen. The Sky News app. Get the full story first.
Turkey is burying its dead.
Whole families died in this collapse. Generations wiped out.
I'm Siobhan Robbins, Sky's Europe correspondent based here in Berlin.
This is just a small sample of the deadly arsenal taken off the streets.
Anyone could say, I'll do that, and then have to go and shoot someone.
Yes.
Sky News, get the full story first.
Well, welcome back. You're watching the press preview. I'm joined again by the editor of The Courier, David Clegg, and the deputy political editor of The Mail on Sunday, Anna Mikhailova. Hear more from both of you in just a moment. First of all, though, on the eve of a major parliamentary vote that could pave the way for the biggest social change in a generation, the question about whether to legalise assisted dying is in the spotlight. MPs will get their say tomorrow on the legislation that divides opinion across the country, and our health correspondent Ashish Joshi has been looking at how the controversial bill could work in practice.
You said something very profound when that result was announced.
Yeah, it was that I can die in peace.
Frank didn't know if she would still be alive today when we spoke to her last November. That's when the assisted dying bill passed its second reading. Every day is a battle for Frank. She already had terminal liver disease, cancer, and now she suffers from diabetes and fibromyalgia.
I was taking morphine anyway for pain, but I'm living on morphine, and that's not a life that you want.
The Royal College of GPs says the assisted dying process should happen outside of general practice. Dr. Susie Caesar is in favour of the bill being passed.
I'd say to you as my GP, I need you to be in my head that I have days, I have nights, and they're becoming progressively stronger, where I just feel I want to just go to sleep, and I just don't want to live my life anymore.
Pain is one of the things that medicine is actually relatively good at dealing with. In the event that it gets set up in a structure where I am a stranger, then I would just come and listen and have a long conversation to understand Frank's history, her background, where she's coming from, why she's come to these conclusions.
But important questions remain over who will take the responsibility for determining a patient's mental capacity and their prognosis. Would it be fair for me to say that you approach Friday's vote with some trepidation?
If this bill as it stands proceeds, through the rest of the parliamentary process, we as psychiatrists are left in a situation where there are so many unknowns about what is expected of us, about what patients can expect, and about the safety of the process. Yes, I do. I approach this professionally with trepidation.
Frank continues to defy her prognosis, but she doesn't look further than the next 6 months.
It's not going to happen in my lifetime, but the thought that people like me who still try to look nice, who still try to have a life and everything, that that they can just have some peace of mind, and they can just have like a weight lifted off their shoulders, knowing that they're going to be able to do it peacefully with their family and everything.
Ashish Joshi, Sky News.
Well, the Commons returning to discuss this tomorrow. It makes the lead story for a number of newspapers, including The Telegraph. The Telegraph saying that Labour backbenchers are switching sides and urging other colleagues to vote against the bill. While the Daily Express, a long leading light in this campaign, speaks to a terminally ill woman with cancer who says, allow us the choice to have a good death. The Daily Mail leads on the senior Conservative, Robert Jenrick, saying he will vote against the bill for the sake of his nana. While The Guardian speaks to the bill's sponsor, Kim Leadbeater, who claims that the UK is behind the curve on assisted dying. And Kim Leadbeater suggesting she has the numbers. How close is it? Is it likely to be?
I think it's very close. I mean, there have been some examples tonight of some of the anti-MPs actually talking about getting taxis for one of the MPs that has COVID to make sure she actually makes the vote, because they're saying, every vote every vote counts. So I think it will be close. You just see a lot of people, a lot of MPs who are wrestling with this, who have concerns about the way the legislation has been drafted, the unintended consequences. I think we've talked about coercive control, and also the pressure people might feel of being a burden on their family and trying to just protect those really vulnerable people going through a very vulnerable time in their lives, and balance that with, I think most people do have that instinct of saying, you know, if someone wishes to die, they should be able to humanely make that choice in the modern day. Kim Leadbeater, I have to say, gives an interview in The Guardian where she suggests that if you don't pass this bill, then that'll be it. There won't be another chance to do it, which I don't think is quite accurate. I mean, you know, everyone is putting forward their argument, but to say that there couldn't be another private member's bill, just like she's done it in a few years' time or a couple of parliaments' time, I think there's nothing stopping that. So she's really fighting her corner too.
Yes. Are the newspapers coming down on either side? Clearly, The Express, they've spoken a lot to Esther Ranson's daughter for today's newspaper. And yet the Mail and the Telegraph, clearly, you know, the Telegraph... there's Jenrick, you know, Robert Jenrick today makes an emotional appeal against assisted dying. It comes as MPs prepare to vote. He's writing in the paper suggesting he helped look after his grandmother, who survived, I think, for a year after her cancer diagnosis, I think the paper said. And then the Telegraph also, Labour MPs are turning on the assisted dying bill. So they're setting out their stall now, aren't they, and coming down on either side.
So I think the Express has been the most trenchant and really, you know, quite an agenda-setting campaign in support of assisted dying. We've seen the Mail have been opposed and are carrying that through tomorrow. The Telegraph, slightly more balanced, but they've their front page tomorrow, Labour MPs turn on assisted dying bill. It gives you the sense that they're moving against it. I think the media and the political climate of it has been really quite interesting, I think, because we talk in general terms about British political debate these days has been very charged, very heated, that you can't have a rational discussion or a reasonable discussion. And in fact, I don't think that's characterised this debate up to now at all. It's actually in many ways been a very mature, sober debate on both sides. That's particularly impressive, I think, when you hear the heartbreaking stories that are involved, how it's an issue of conscience, how the stakes could not be higher. We're literally talking about life or death. But you know, the general tenor of it up till now has been quite a credit to the politicians and indeed, I think, the media platforms in which it's been debated on. So I just wonder is when we get to the thick of it now, when the point Anna makes about clearly it's not true that there won't be another chance. I cover the Scottish Parliament. There's been 3 efforts at it in the last 10 years by my count, so certainly it can come back. And the other element of it is that the public in polling always is, or appears to be broadly supportive. I saw some figures today, I think, which put it at about 75%, which I think we've seen figures around that.
In support of?
In support of this particular legislation, I think was the way that poll was worded. And I think part of that drift has been the sense that we can trust the politicians on this issue to actually legislate properly. And a lot of that will be about, are these safeguards going to be in place? Because the thing almost everyone you talk to who's worried about this is that they're worried about vulnerable people being exploited, about people feeling that they're a burden on their family, about people abusing or using the system. And I get the sense is what they want is a sense that the politicians are going to debate this and do this properly and in a way that we can feel that it is safe and that won't happen.
Yeah, and just, sorry, I'm going to move on. Do you mind just very quickly, do you think it will go through, yes or no?
I think it's too close to call at the moment.
OK.
I think it will go through, but I still think it's very close.
Yeah, OK, well, full coverage of that. Sorry to cut you off in your...
No, that's quite all right. I was talking too long.
No, we've got a lot of things to pack in the next File Probe, including a full look at tomorrow's front pages. Back in a moment.
I'm Stephen Murphy, and I'm Sky's Ireland correspondent based here in Dublin.
The waters of Ireland and Britain should be home to great white sharks.
If there are great white sharks in this area, there's no reason they wouldn't come here to feed. It's basically a buffet on a beach. This could be not only a record-breaking storm, but potentially the most dangerous storm ever to hit Ireland.
Well, hello there, watching the press preview with these stories making tomorrow's newspapers. We are joined once again by the editor of The Courier, David Clegg, and the deputy political editor of The Mail on Sunday, Anna Mikhailova. Welcome back to both of you. So, front pages then. Let's start with the Financial Times. It says President Trump has set a 2-week countdown to decide whether the USA will join in on the attacks on Iran. The Guardian, with the story, Trump will decide on an Iran attack within 2 weeks. The Times sees it as Mr. Trump stepping back from the brink, at least for now. Meantime, ahead of tomorrow's vote on the assisted dying bill, The Telegraph says Labour backbenchers are switching sides and urging other colleagues to vote against the bill. While The Express, which has been a leading light in the campaign, speaks to a terminally ill woman with cancer who says, allow us the choice to have a good death. And the former Tory Cabinet Minister, Robert Jenrick, tells the Daily Mail that he will vote against the bill for the sake of his grandmother, who lived for almost a year after her cancer diagnosis. The Metro is leading with the Chinese student jailed for life for drugging and raping at least 10 women here and in China. The Daily Mirror claims an exclusive with pop paedophile Gary Glitter, where he agrees with the parole board, ruling that he's not fit to be freed from jail. News of compensation plans for victims of a second post office computer software scandal, predating the one involving the Horizon system, is top story for The Eye. And finally, Royal Ascot. The Star reflects on record temperatures at the famous race meeting. So let's bring in David and Anna and go to the Daily Telegraph, which is somewhat expressed by how much it costs to travel, talking about how much we'll have to pay the European Union to get in. Now it's passports that are going up, Anna.
Yes, so it's reporting a National Audit Office recommendation that the cost of renewing your passport should go up to fill a black hole in the budget of the Passport Office. Now, the Quango has not actually said how much it should go up by, but the Telegraph has done its own sums and estimated that the £95 fee could go up by about £32. So it's another example of the cost of everything pretty much going up, and of course the cost of holidays once again, and another black hole in another government budget, which is delightful to hear about, of course.
Yes, indeed so. Let's go to costs elsewhere, which is The Times. I don't know if you've got a copy. Yes, you have. Yes. So this is plans to be set out on Friday. Angela Rayner, the Deputy Prime Minister, will outline plans for a progressive redistribution of local authority funding, which, in simple terms, means that council tax bills in the swathes of southern England, as they put it, will rise to funnel money to northern cities under radical Labour reforms. That might make swathes of southern counties rather unhappy.
Yeah, I imagine it would, especially if it's badged in that way. I'm trying to decipher it a little bit, though, because it says Rayner will announce plans for a new formula for allocating this money. Now, that is money from central government based on local needs, including population, poverty and age. This will lead to more cash going to deprived areas after the department said that the link between funding and local needs had broken down, and that reform would enable local authorities who have had to scale back services the most to catch up. So the question is, it's being presented as a geographical divide, whereas it's being presented in another way as an attempt to redistribute money to people who are in more deprived communities. Now, of course, that would tend to be the north in regards to England, but I'm sure it will cause some concern in Surrey.
It was always the Barnett formula, wasn't it, to decide how much Scotland would get,
Yes,
for example.
I've heard this kind of language before.
I wondered how swiftly we'd go down there. But anyway, is it broken, and does there need to be some redistribution, and will everyone just be happy about it?
Well, it is completely absurd that there are parts of London, notably Westminster Council, that pay substantially less for council tax than, for example, Manchester and other parts of England, because, you know, council tax is based on a really, really outdated model, but the problem is the Labour government came in promising quite fundamental reforms of business rates, council tax, which are very politically difficult to do. It looks a bit like they've bottled it on those and are now trying to find other ways to correct unfairnesses. But usually when you're tinkering, you end up introducing new unfairnesses.
The problem is that those living in London, which includes a lot of very deprived areas, have much higher costs of living, including, for example, in housing. So, you know, it's a bit of quid pro quo here, isn't there, I suppose, in some of the elements of costs people face. Let's go to the Mirror. A government whip resigning in protest at benefit cuts for disabled people, which are coming to the Commons on July the 1st, I think we found out today.
Yeah, that's right. It's Vicky Foxcroft who has resigned as a government whip. I think there's a couple of things that are interesting here. She's a whip, obviously, so it's not a government minister. However...
Technically, a whip is a minister.
Oh, of course.
Technically.
Yeah. That was a very good correction. But the point I was going to make is that she is someone who's campaigned for disabled rights, but I think crucially here she said she has tried to get changes in the background and it is now clear that it's not going to happen. So it seems that these reforms to the personal independence payments are going ahead.
We've only got a minute and a bit left, and I know we want to get to your newspaper and your favourite story because you broke it several months ago, and there's been a big report with consequences, and this is fundamentally about university funding, isn't it?
It's very much about university funding. It's about Dundee University, and it is the biggest issue in my home city of Dundee, and the Courier has been reporting for the last 7 months about the financial crisis there, one that could not inconceivably have seen the university close. Today, there was a report that's been leading the news agenda in Scotland about how this happened and who's to blame. And I think there's 3 things I'll pick out very quickly. One is that the university funding sector is very challenged across the UK. There's particular problems in Scotland. There's the issue of international students. And then what has happened in Dundee, as we outline in the Courier tomorrow morning, is that this report has shown there's been real financial mismanagement, and there's been a spate of resignations today from people who are in power there. That university is essential for the city of Dundee, for its economy and for its future, so it's vital that the Scottish Government have been getting involved and that it gets put back on proper footing. Yeah, very interesting read and very broader implications, as you said. Let's go to the Daily Star. We've got 20 seconds. Roll Ascot. I'd like us to have chosen the dog in the Telegraph. Also a lovely picture. But anyway, Anna, you know, heat wave, here we come.
Just 20 seconds to talk about the heat wave. I think someone said the other day that isn't it extraordinary that we used to never have hot weather in the summer ever, and now it's almost happening every other month. So is it almost not newsworthy enough to be on the front page?
People enjoy it, though. So.
We've had 2 years of grey rain. It's very newsworthy as far as I'm concerned. But anyway, enjoy it while it lasts, I guess. Thunderstorms to come, no doubt. David, Anna, thank you very much indeed. You know, a big spread of some serious stories there tonight. We have the sport next. A good day for Britain's Jacob Fernley and Katie Bolter as they continue to impress in the build-up to Wimbledon.